Would you just look at that? Just look at it. After weeks of talking about all of these things that we've got to do to build this fish room and showing you what we've done so far, we now finally have what looks to be a real fish room situation happening here. And at least it's the start of it. Today, I'm going to explain exactly how I got from a blank room to this. I realize there's not water in it yet. No, it's not running yet, but we're almost there. So if you're not aware of what's going on here, maybe you haven't checked in a few weeks, I'm in the process of adding a bunch of aquariums to my almost 200-year-old barn, which we have been using exclusively as a warehouse for keepfishkeeping.com. It's now going to be a warehouse and a fish room where, when it's all said and done, we're going to have 161 aquariums, actually 159 aquariums and 2 big tubs. And we're going to be selling fish again on our website. I'm super excited about this, and this is kind of the start of the real action that's been going on here. For the last few weeks, I've been showing you basically getting all of the systems installed into this building, the water system, the air system, the mini split. Oh, don't even talk to me about the mini split system. And now we're actually starting to add aquariums to this, starting with this room. This is our snail room. We've been selling live snails on keepfishkeeping.com for a couple of years now, and the system that we had in here was trifling. It was bad. We set it up pretty quick. We used racks that we thought were going to be fine. They turned out not to be fine, and it just turned into a huge mess. And so one of the things that I wanted to do with this was rebuild the snail system for Lisa, and I didn't want that to be the last thing on the list. I wanted to make sure it got done. I didn't want to drag it out. So I decided to start with that system first. And now here we are. Again, there's no water in it yet. In fact, I can't even run the system yet. I will explain later on why that is. But I mean, I've made some real progress here over the last 5 days is how long it's taken me to get to this point. I am only one person. So, you know, I realize there's people out there that probably could have done all of this in one day, but I'm old, I'm slow, and it's just me. So I'm not ashamed of it. So let me explain a little bit about what we got going on here, and then I'll explain how I've done all of this. There is 36 20 highs in here, all brand new. We did not throw away the tanks that we were using in here. Those are going to be used in the fish room, but for Lisa's system, I wanted to get her set up with all brand new tanks. Plus, it just worked out better for the logistics of this project to do this. She's still using a bunch of the 20 gallons that we had in here before, but she moved them over to the fish house. And that's where we have the snails right now that we're still selling on the website. Our business has not shut down for this. We're still doing everything that we have been doing, but we just have the snails in a different location. So we took quite a while getting, I shouldn't say we, Lisa took a long time getting all of the snails out of this room. And then once they were out of this room, we removed all of the old 20 gallons. Some of them are sitting outside. Some of them have been moved to the fish house. And, you know, it's just everything is in complete shambles right now. But once we did all of that, we got this room here completely cleared out, which was nice to be able to start from scratch, to build this room from the ground up. And that's exactly where we had to start, was in the ground. Obviously not in the ground, but I had to start this whole thing at the bottom, which is the drains. These are 3-inch PVC pipes that I used for the drains. Probably overkill, but hey, you know what? Overkill everything, right? No big deal. So I ran 3-inch pipes all the way around this room, and then out of the corner, which goes out into the fish room. And this is one of the reasons why I can't run this system yet, because the drain doesn't go out of the building yet. It just goes into the next room. And so if I was to hook this up to a water changing system and start draining water through it, it would just go all over the floor, and kind of defeats the purpose of doing all of that. So with the drains run, I don't even know how to do these videos. I'm just kind of trying to update you on everything. So I don't know how specific I want to go with all of this, but you may not be able to see it in the actual footage here, but every single drain is at a very slight angle. It's at an angle that probably doesn't even show up on camera, but it is that way because this whole drain system is going to be a gravity system. There's no pumps pushing the water through. So everything has to start up high and drain down. And it basically has to go from this room and all of the other drains that we're going to be installing. It has to go downhill all the way until it leaves the building. Again, because it's a gravity system. So that was a little, well, it was a little challenging to make sure everything was at an angle and didn't look ridiculous. I didn't want the PVC pipes like that on the wall, even though you don't even really see them. Still, I didn't want that. So anyway, with all of those drained, I drilled, I believe the size is 7/8 of an inch, 7/8 of an inch holes in the top of that PVC pipe, where I will run a drain hose down into that. It's not installed yet because, again, I'm only one person, but I'm just going to be using the black irrigation hose. In fact, let me grab it. I had to drive 2 hours to a Lowe's that had this 500-foot roll of this irrigation hose because it's going to be the wintertime very soon. And so aren't a lot of people installing irrigation pipes right now, or irrigation systems, but this is the pipe here. It's just a 1/2 inch, very flimsy, it's not like a super rigid piping. It's meant to go under the ground for lawn irrigation systems. So is the water changing system that we're using. That's also for irrigation systems. But anyway, that's what I'm going to be using in the drains. So the drain will go from every single tank down into that 3-inch PVC, and it's just going to rest in there. I'm not permanently attaching it to the PVC with anything. I'm not even sure how I would do that. I'm sure there's a fitting that you could do that, but I've done it this way so many times, and I've seen it done even more primitive ways than this. It's going to be fine. There's not going to be a ridiculous amount of water running through this system at any one given time, so it's not going to be a problem. I'm going to do some math here. I'm going to give you an exact number. So whenever a water change happens in this particular room here, 180 gallons is going to run through the system. Basically, we will run 5 gallons of clean water to every single tank, and that's going to be over the course of like 30 minutes. So in a 30-minute time frame, 180 gallons will go into the system and then drain through. It's really, that might seem like a lot, but it's really not. It's just a very slow, very subtle stream of water that's going to be going through these PVC pipes. It's not under pressure. It's pretty simple. I didn't even really need to glue all of this PVC, if I'm being honest with you, but I did it anyway because why not? So that's it for the drains. They are all in place. Excited about that. It was time to go up and do the part that's a even bigger pain in the butt, because you got to go up and down the ladder over and over and over again. The first thing was to tie in the water supply from the water changing system. If you recall from a couple of weeks ago, I ran the water and I just stopped it like in the middle of the main room of the barn. And then so I had to connect it from there all the way to the room here with the 3/4 inch PVC, and then run a horseshoe around the room to where it terminates here over the mini split system. That's for the water supply for the water changing system. And then I had to do the same thing for the air system, because as you see here, every single tank has a hydro sponge filter in it. It's not hooked up yet, obviously. It's in my hand. How could it be? But every single tank is going to have that in it. And so we need air for that. So I ran, and this is 1.25 inch PVC that I ran all through here. And where this system is different, or the air line is different from the water supply, is you have to have a loop system. You don't ever want your air system to terminate, because if you do, it will build up pressure and it could blow. So we don't want that to happen. So you actually run a loop system. I'm acting like I know what, like I don't even really understand the science behind that, but that's what you have to do when you run when you run air systems, whether you're using a linear piston air pump like I am, or if you're going to go big time and use a blower, you really have to do that then, because those are super powerful. Blowers are too loud though. I've had them in the past. I'm not interested in a blower. Linear piston air pump, nice and quiet, but super powerful. And I don't want these pipes to blow out. So I had to basically put a loop in here for the air system. So once all of those was tied into the room, and I knew exactly where all the tanks were going to be, and I knew where everything lined up, I had to drill and tap all of these little valves, these little black valves that you see here. And I did a little explanation of that. I'll just cut to that now to give you an idea of what's involved in putting all of these valves in. Okay, I've been working on running these water supply lines to all of the tanks, and this is where the fun begins. If you're somebody like me, others might look at this particular part of the project as being kind of monotonous and a little bit boring. I don't. This is where I thrive. Kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. I don't know. I think I was born to work in a factory somewhere where you're just doing the same thing over and over. I don't know. I do well in that. But what it is that I'm getting ready to do is start to tap all of the supplies with these little valves. These are something I purchased from Gemco. I'll put the model number and all of that down in the description. But what this is a tiny valve that can be used for airlines or water. And I'm going to be using them for both, but on different pipes. I hope that makes sense. So each one of these has to be drilled into the supply pipes. And you can't just drill a hole and pop it in there and hope that glue holds it in. No, you have to take it a step further than that. You have to tap them into it. So what has to happen is, this is a drill bit, again, purchased from Gemco, which is specifically sized to these valves. The drill bit will drill the hole, and then the second drill bit is actually a tap. And what this does, I've got something on my hands there, but what it does is it cuts the threads into the PVC so that this will screw in. If you look at the end here, it's threaded. And so for each one, I'm very fortunate. I have two drills. I have to drill the hole and then tap it with this to cut those threads. Then I'm going to take, again, recommended by Gemco, a tiny dab of silicone on the threads and then screw them into it. I used to do Teflon tape, but you want to talk about a pain in the butt and something that gets old very fast. Try putting Teflon tape on 300 of these valves, 320 to be exact, because that's how many tanks we're going to end up with. And there's one of these valves for each water supply line and one for each airline. So I'm not trying to wrap 300 valves with Teflon tape. I've done it before and it sucks. Now, the cool thing about this will supply all the air you need, but this particular size valve is actually rated to pass about about 10 gallons of water per hour, which fits perfectly with the system that I'm putting in place. So it's perfect. I mean, this is absolutely the perfect thing. So it's time to stop talking about it and start drilling all of these holes. I spent some time measuring out exactly where the tanks are going to be and then going through and marking two holes. One is for the top level of tanks and one is for the bottom level. You got to have two valves at every 12 inches, basically. So it's time to stop talking about it and start doing it. This is exciting. This is where real progress starts happening. Now, a lot of people might look at a job like that and frown upon that, thinking, well, that's boring. I don't want to do the same thing over and over again. I do really well in a situation like that. Just doing the same thing over and over, little tedious jobs. I don't know why, but I tend to do really well with that. So I enjoyed that part of the process. Not a big deal. Once I got all of these valves in, then it was time to start the real fun. Well, I had to hang it all up. And then once these were all in, the valves were in and the pipes were in and all of that was done, it was time to get started on all of this. Now, when it comes to building these racks, I got to be honest with you, I did it in a way that I kind of regret doing. It's not that it's not going to work, and it's also not that it's not good. It's very good. I've done it this way in the past. In fact, I built my entire fish store with this style of racking, which is taking the upright posts, whatever you want to call it, and notching it out for the shelves to sit in. It works really well to do that, but I do regret doing that because now I'm kind of stuck doing it for all the racks because I want there to be consistency, and it's way overkill. I really shouldn't have done that. It looks good with it notched, but it was really something that, I don't know, maybe it was just a vanity thing, like me showing off, hey, watch me use my track saw and cut all of these notches. I don't know. I feel like it was a really stupid idea. And again, now I'm stuck doing it on all the racks, but it's okay. Again, therapeutic to cut those notches out. It's not that big of a deal, but it is very time consuming. But what it does is provides all the support that you'll ever need, and it saves a little bit of space. I'm going to try to explain what I'm talking about, and hopefully the microphone picks me up good here. The other style of racks that I've built many times on this YouTube channel would involve a piece of 2x4 here running down that carries all of the weight of the top shelf. It is the most bulletproof way to build a stand, and it is solid as a rock. You could park an F-250 on one of these racks and it would never fall down. But it makes every stand substantially wider. Like each section would be like 3 inches wider. And I know what every man watching this is thinking, well, hey, we could all use 3 more inches, but not when it comes to fish rooms where your space is absolutely limited and you're trying to utilize every square foot in this space as efficiently as possible. I wanted to save those 3 inches. I don't need those 3 inches. And I decided to notch all of these out. Again, it took forever to do it. But I guess in the end, even though I'm going to suffer through it building all the other racks this way, I'm going to look at it as being something that's worth it. I hope that's the way I look at it anyway. But what those notches do is make it very easy when it comes time to assemble these racks. And since this room was wide open, I just laid them down on the floor. It is a small room. It's only like 9 by 12, but I laid them down on the floor, assembled them. And the cool thing is, you know, if your saw is square and you cut everything right and all of your cuts are the same, you really don't even need a big framing square to put it together. I just used a little speed square for every corner to put it all together. And if I'm being honest with you, in this room, in this building, it wouldn't have made a difference if the racks were perfectly square anyway, because the floors are very far from being perfectly square. So once they were together, I had to stand them up, attach everything together, and then level it all off with a series of shims. Some shims are 1.5 inches, where the one next to it is no shim at all. I mean, that's how wild these floors are here. They're almost 200 years old. So what do you want? I'm okay with that, but it was kind of a pain in the ass. It took forever to get the stands to be nice and level and also secured to the wall. I've had a few people ask, is the building going to be able to hold the weight of all of these tanks? Yes, it absolutely will. These floors, I promise you, I've already used this analogy. I could park an F-250 in this room and there would not be any problems. I mean, these floors are solid as a rock, but they're extremely uneven. They're all over the place. So it makes it a challenge. And that's another reason why I kind of regret cutting the notches. I've already cut the notches for the next rack that I'm going to be building out in the main fish room. And I kind of regret doing that now that I know how off these floors are. But anyway, that's me just ranting because that was pretty frustrating. But once I got the racks all leveled off, then I added the plywood shelf on top. This is just 1/2-inch plywood. You're not even going to see it. But I do that to provide support for the tanks so that I don't have to run 2x4s through there, which you never truly get perfectly even, and it becomes a huge hassle. So instead of doing that, to provide support to all of the sides, to have support all the way around for every single aquarium, I just put the plywood in there. It's very fast, it's cheap, and it's a great way of supporting every bit of the tanks. I'm going to be honest with you. It's also overkill. I have run fish rooms before with tanks sitting sideways like this, and they're only supported in the front and the back, nothing going down the sides, and I never had any tanks break. I never had any problems or anything like that. But I'm over that stuff. I'm over half-assing stuff. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to overkill the hell out of it. That's exactly what I've done here. You could put F-350 on these racks, and it ain't going nowhere. They're attached to the wall. They're screwed down to the floor. These things are solid, I promise you. They're as solid as something in this building can be. Now, I probably am, once all of the racks in this building are done, I'm going to probably do a video that's just all about building racks. So stay tuned for that if you want a more detailed how I get the measurements and all of that kind of stuff. That's going to be coming down the road. But these videos here that I'm giving you every week are just kind of an update on what we're doing here. So once the racks were done, this is when I had to do the part of the project that everyone is scared of. And I got to be honest with you, I'm scared of it too. Whenever I have to do this, I've had to do it in the past, and I've always been afraid of it. Here's the analogy that I'll use for this. If you're like me, you worry every time you're going to go for your yearly checkup at the doctor. I'm 51. I have to do it every year now. And if you're like me, you worry because you know you're going to have to get blood drawn. I don't know why I freak out over that, but I do. I worry about that. I'm not scared of needles, but for some reason, when I know I'm getting a needle, it bothers me. So I guess I'm scared of needles, and I should just admit that. But what I'm saying is, every single time I've ever had to have blood drawn, my heart rate's gone up, my BP goes up, I start to freak out a little bit, and I tell the doctors, I'm like, this is just what happens with me. I'm fine. I'm not going to pass out. It's nothing like that. It just happens. So do what you got to do, and everything's going to be fine. And every single time in my entire 51 years, I've had that done. When it's over, I'm like, what the hell did I worry about that for? Like, I've never had a bad phlebotomist. I guess that's the technical term for somebody that draws blood. I've never had one of those experiences where they're like, bah, 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 trying to find a vein. You know, I'm practically a bodybuilder, so, you know, it's not hard to find my veins. I promise I'm like a bodybuilder. Anyway, listen, I'm not a bodybuilder, of course not, but my veins are not hard to find. I've never had that problem. But the point I'm trying to make is I worry and I worry and I worry, and then I have it done and I'm like, oh my God, I feel like such an idiot. Why did I worry about it? And it's always like a year later when I have to have that again and I forget all about it. And I'm like, oh, I'm worried, and my heart rate goes up, and it's the same process over and over and over again. Well, the reason why I'm talking about all of this is because drilling tanks is the exact same scenario. I've had conversations with people before that are building fish rooms, and they're like, no, I'm not drilling tanks. That's too risky. I'm just going to use big, ugly PVC overflows, and it's going to look ridiculous, but that I'm going to do it that way because I don't want to break tanks. And every time I'm like, you know what? What are you worried about? It's not a big deal. Drilling tanks is not an enjoyable thing to do, but it's not as difficult and risky as people think. I shouldn't have said it that way. It's certainly risky. If you're a barbarian and you're trying to drill through there, you might have a problem. But if you have a little bit of finesse when you go to drill tanks, I promise you, it's really not that big of a deal. But I also understand every single aquarium I have ever drilled in my entire lifetime has been 55 gallons or smaller. I've never drilled anything bigger than that. If I had a 125 gallon or 150 gallon that I was getting ready to drill, or even bigger than that, I understand. I'd be freaking out a little bit too. But I also have drilled glass so many times that I know there's really nothing to worry about. If you just take your time, you don't rush anything, you're not in a race, you're not trying to impress anybody. If you just slow down, take your time, and understand that this is going to take a while, then you'll be fine. It's when you're in a hurry that you make mistakes and you could end up breaking tanks. And I understand if you were to break 125 gallon or anything bigger than that, that's devastating because aquariums cost a ridiculous amount of money now. But when it comes to 20 gallons, I wasn't worried about it. It's not like I'm made of money, but when you consider the cost of these, you can go to Petco during their 50% off sale. You can get these for like 26 bucks. Yeah, it sucks. If you break one, you're out 26 bucks, but that's a whole lot better than if you're out like 600 for a 125 or something. You know what I'm saying? So I understand if people are freaking out about 125s and up, but with these little ones, it's not a big deal. And I'm happy to say that because I'm not in a hurry, because I've learned patience in my 51 years, I didn't break a single tank, not one. 36 tanks I drilled for this system, and not even one of them break. Never even had any scares. I didn't break a single one, and I don't plan on breaking any this entire project. I'm going to be drilling 18 40 breeders next, then 24 more 20s, and then I'm going to get to the big, massive rack where I have to drill 64 20 gallons. I'm not looking forward to that because it is a long, tedious process, and I understand. I said I like that repetitive work, and but not when it comes to drilling tanks. I don't know. It's not something that I really enjoy, but I will tell you this. Whenever I've had to drill multiple tanks, when I'm done drilling, oh boy, I'm so glad. Drilling all of these took me, I did it over the course of 2 days. I started in the evening and then I finished up the following morning. It was probably, I'm going to be realistic, it probably took me between 4 and 5 hours to drill all of these tanks. Now, in my defense, I did have to carry each one of them from the trailer. I had to bring it into the building, make sure the dog doesn't run out, make sure the cats don't go out. That's a whole big thing. And then bring them all in individually. I had to dry them off because they were sitting out there in the rain. And so that probably doubled the amount of time that it took. But I actually set up a stopwatch while I did one of the tanks, and it took me just under 6 minutes to actually penetrate the glass and get the hole completely drilled. Now, one of the things that I will say is, as I went on and as I got a better feel for drilling the tanks and I just became more familiar with it, I was able to drill them towards the end a lot faster. And I didn't do a stopwatch, but I'd be willing to bet that the last few tanks that I did, it was probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 minutes each. But then you have to add the time between to, put it away, go get a new one, wipe it all off, all that. So, but point is, over the course of 2 days, it was probably about between 4 and 5 hours to get all of these tanks drilled. I didn't even break one of them. So once all of the tanks were drilled, it was time to start assembling these things. First with the bulkheads. These are from Gemco, just like the valves, just like so many of the things that I've used in this project. They came from Gemco. Love that company. Talked about them in great depth last week. I'm just the biggest fan of Gemco. That's where all of the bulkheads came from. All of the air stones that I installed into the sponge filters, all of the valves, all of that stuff, all came from Gemco. And the bit that I used to drill these tanks. Now, there's a lot of glass cutting drill bits out there, but this is one of the things that I would recommend to you that I promise you it makes a difference. And if you don't listen to me, you might be making a mistake. Don't buy a cheap Chinese bit off of Amazon to drill through glass. Don't do it. Get the good stuff. Call up Gemco and ask them what's the good stuff, and they will supply you with a bit that is far superior to any of that junk that you can get for $9 off of Amazon. Just trust me on that. The cheap Chinese garbage it's cheap Chinese garbage. Stay away from that stuff. I bought their most premium bit that they had at Gemco, but the reason why I did that was because I knew I was going to be drilling 160 holes. If I was going to be drilling, 24 holes or something like that, I probably would have bought their tier down. They've got levels of these bits. I would have probably bought one that was a tier down and not quite as expensive. I want to say, I'll put it on the screen, but I want to say the bit that I bought was like 80 bucks. But again, when you're talking about 160 tanks, it's absolutely worth it. That's like 50 cents a hole. That's not a big deal. And having used several glass drill bits in the past, I could tell you this one's the best one I've ever used. You could just feel it. It was just grinding through that, and it was superb. I am thrilled with that drill bit. Plus, that one has a dressing stone that kind of clears off all of the debris that gathers up in the diamonds and all. I don't know. So that every time you run it through that dressing stone, it kind of revitalizes the bit and makes it cut like brand new again. So beautiful. Absolutely money well spent. Cannot recommend those bits enough. Again, I'll put the model number and everything right here. And if you want one, call up Gemco, get it. I don't get anything for you doing that. I'm just telling you what's the right thing to do. Gemco's the best. So now each tank needed the bulkheads installed and then the air stones put into the sponge filters. These sponge filters are the Hydro 3s. They're a little bigger than what you would usually use in a 20-gallon tank, but we're going to have a lot of stuff in here. Lisa has a lot of snails, and snails are humongous waste producers. So there's going to be a lot of water changes happening in here, and we're going to need quite a bit of mechanical filtration. So I sized up the sponge filters. That's what I'm going to be doing throughout the entire fish room too. That, along with the water changes that are going to be done every single day, it's just going to keep the water nice and clean, even with big, dirty snails. Don't be afraid of snails being dirty. It's when you have 125 of them in a tank like that, they're big waste producers. If you got 4 or 5 of them in your tank, you ain't going to have any problems. Trust me. But these are the ATI Hydro sponge filters, which we do have on keepfishkeeping.com. It's the best sponge filter that's ever been made, and I'll say it to your face. I absolutely love these, and I love that the cavity in the center, you can take it apart and install air stones into there if you want to, and it's actually attached to the filter. It's not just dangling in there. I don't know. It just seems like it's a better way of doing it. So love those. I did not buy those from Gemco. Gemco also sells them, but we are a retailer of ATI sponge filters. So I was able to purchase them directly from ATI and get them at wholesale price. So that's a beautiful thing. So that gets us to where we are right now. Well, at least with the top row of tanks. I still have to go through the bottom and install all of the bulkheads and all of that, and then run this big hose for the drains to all of the tanks, and then run the air line and the water line from up top. But I'm not in a huge hurry to do that because, like I alluded to in the beginning of this video, I can't even use this system yet. So I guess I should explain why. I was warned by Gemco when I bought all of this stuff. They said, hey, listen, the air pump that you're going to be using, I would not start that thing up and run that until you have the whole fish room built. Because I told her my process. I said, I'm going to be doing 36 tanks in one room first, and then I'm going to go out and do 18 more, and then 24 more, and then 64 more. And she said, if you put that air, if you turn that air pump on and you run it to just 36 tanks, that the air pump is way too powerful for that. It's not going to work right. It's going to blow everything up. Not the pump, but all of the airlines. It's going to be too much for just 36 tanks. You'll end up blowing out the system. So she said, I would get to where you at least have half of the tanks installed before you even start that air pump up. So that's why I've been saying it's really not a big deal that it's not done yet, because I can't run the air system anyway until I get much farther along in this whole process. And then the water system, like I said before, the drains don't run all the way through the building yet. I've got a couple of racks that are still in the way that have to be moved out of here, and then I can run the drains all the way out of the building. So, you know, like I've been saying throughout this process all along, it is a step-by-step process to get this thing done. And so where we're at now with this snail room is pretty much where it's like, I'm done in here, except for going through and putting in all the bulkheads and all of that kind of stuff. I can save a lot of that for a rainy day, or if Lisa gets bored, I can have her come in and do those. This is her snail room anyway, but those are little tedious tasks that I can do anytime. Getting the supply lines in, getting the drains in, the racks built, getting the tanks drilled, that was the priority. So now that we're here, I can move on to the next rack, which is going to be coming up next week. And for some reason, I'm super excited about this one. The next rack that I'm going to be building and showing you, hopefully, unless something goes wrong in the next video, is going to be the 40 breeder wall. There's going to be 18 40 breeders stacked 3 high. That's going to be going up next week. And I'm looking forward to it because I showed you in the footage here, I had to run the water supply all through the up and down and through it was just a huge hassle. And then the air system was the same way. For the 40 breeder wall, I just have to run a straight shot down for the water and a straight shot down, which will turn at the end to make the big loop system. But I'm not going to be doing that part yet. I'm just running a straight pipe down for both air and water, put my valves in, only 18 of them. I had to do 72 in here, 36 or 2 for each tank, 36 tanks. So it's almost going to be like it's going to be easy because it's not as many. It's only 18 tanks. So building that rack, drilling all of those tanks, installing all of the drains and supplies and all of that for that, that's next. That's coming up on the next one. And I think it's going to be really cool. I think it's just going to look really neat to have that. I don't even know the math, but it's going to be 6 wide, 3 high, 18 40 breeders. It's going to look really cool. So if you want to see that whole process, that's going to be next week. But for now, I'm going to step back and I'm just going to look at this because I think it looks pretty daggone cool. It looks way better than what we had in here before. No disrespect to anybody. I'm not throwing any shade at my wife or anybody like that, but the snail room just wasn't presentable before. Now it is. Well, I mean, it really will be once we get it working and operational and there's snails in it. Then it'll look really cool. I feel like I have to address one more thing before I get out of here, and that is, are we going to paint the racks? I don't know. That's up to Lisa. If she wants to do that, she can do it. I'm not worried about it. This is not a showroom. We're never going to have customers coming in here to pick out snails, so don't even ask. That's never going to be a thing. So this doesn't need to present like a showroom, like a store would be. So I'm not worried about the racks being painted. I think they look good just the way they are. I'm going to leave them exactly as they are. If Lisa decides she wants to paint them, that's up to her. I ain't doing it. And the back of the tanks are another one. I asked Lisa, do you want me to paint the back of those tanks? And she said, nah, I don't think it's going to be needed. And I disagree with her. I think we should have painted the back of these tanks. We still can, but that's up to her. She gets this room. This is hers. So this is being built the way she wants it. And she said she doesn't care about the backs being painted. Not the backs, but the technically the sides, but they would be the backs now. I don't know. Again, it's up to her. If she wants to do it, I'll help her with it, but that's going to be on her too. If she wants them painted, she's got to do it herself. She's got to do it before I hook everything up, because once it's all hooked up, it'd be a pain in the ass to take it apart so that she can paint it. It's like, you need to decide now, woman. Don't be waiting too long. But anyway, this has been a really good week. I'm very pleased to get all of this done in a week. It's a lot for me, and I feel good about it. We made some serious progress here, and it's exciting to finally see some glass boxes in here. I can't wait till next week when we get 18 more. And then the week after that will be 24 more. And then I'm dreading the 64 tank rack. It's actually 72 when you include the plant tanks. I'm not looking forward to drilling all those tanks. That's terrible. That's too long. It's just going to be, it's twice as many as I have in here. Oh, I'm not looking forward to that at all. If you want to indulge in this misery with me when it comes to that rack, join me. In a few weeks, it'll be time to build that one. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to everything but drilling those tanks. But anyway, why am I still talking? I'm rambling at this point. Thank you for following along with this progress, or with this project with me. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to go eat some dinner. Bye.